Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order and proceed with the agenda. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Why don't we start with approval of the minutes? Cato circulated the minutes that were beautifully drafted by Ruth, constructively edited by a couple others, and circulated by Cato. Did everyone have a chance to review them?
Yes.
If there are no comments on them, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as circulated.
So moved.
I had one comment that I passed on to Cato. It was just to these in one of the sentences.
Okay, so there's a typo you picked up.
Yeah.
Okay. That must have been my fault because Ruth would never do that.
I mean, I found it by accident.
Okay. Then I guess the motion would be amended to approve the minutes with that correction.
Is Cato on the line? I can send those comments to somebody. Just what?
He's not here.
Okay.
But if that, but we'll note that for the final version that's posted in the town website. All in favor? Actually, do we need to do this by roll call? That's been our habit. So let's see. We'll do by roll call. I'm going to go around the window. Jennifer Shinneman.
Aye.
Can Jen McGonigal vote yet?
Not sworn in yet.
Sorry, Jen. Jane.
Aye.
Dawn. Dawn, did you say yes? Sorry.
Oh, yes. I didn't hear you. You beeped
Okay.
out. Sorry.
Jan.
Yes. Aye.
And Beth.
Aye.
And I'll vote in favor as well. So it's unanimous. Amazing. Thank you. In terms of the next agenda item, status of additional committee nominations, I believe Jen McGonigal has been officially appointed by the select board. Is that correct?
That's correct, on Monday. And the last step is that, Jen, you'll receive a card in the mail from the town clerk, and then you get sworn in.
Okay.
You could probably email, townhouse isn't open, but maybe you can email her and see if she's can meet you on the steps or something at some point.
She's doing them outside. I talked to Kari last week, so if you just email her, she'll meet you outside and takes 2 minutes.
And that'll be on the card I get?
Her email?
Yeah.
Yeah, or it's townclerk@concordma.gov.
Okay.
Does anyone know if Ramon's been sworn in yet?
I connected with Ramon with Kari last week, but I didn't hear if he made an appointment.
Okay. I'll follow up with him afterwards just to check on his status. And we've done away with the hazing part of the initiation, or is it just the swearing in, right?
Darn.
Okay, good. All right, so let's move on then to and Jen, obviously, thank you very much for stepping up.
Thank you.
Adding another dimension to our committee here. Updates from the town. Stephen, why don't I turn it over to you and Beth?
So I guess just by way of a quick update, we did have that call about kind of outdoor events. And I think I don't know if that's on the agenda or not, but if we want to have that as a separate discussion, I can withhold any really comment on that. But the governor last week revised the guidance on gatherings, and so people should really be mindful of some of the restrictions being loosened. I think we've settled on a date for town meeting, which is September 13th, Sunday, September 13th, starting at 1 o'clock. I don't know if that's engraved in stone yet, but that's the date and time as of now. And we haven't. I think we got one application for outdoor dining today. We've approved all the ones we've received so far very quickly, and we've been able to provide some barriers and things like that to some of those restaurants. We did send out a reverse 911 code red call last week before the holiday weekends. I'll be honest with you, I did get some feedback that use of the system was not appreciated by, I don't know if it's a handful of people, but at the select board meeting Monday night, I did talk about that feedback, and I did state for the record that I felt like it was consistent with the other messages we've given out about managing response to COVID-19, and that includes the impact on our local economy and our local businesses. And there are aspects to this that I do believe are an economic emergency. And so we're trying to keep reminding people that supporting local businesses is an essential part of recovery. And I know Beth has some updates on, certainly the visitor center reopening and some of the things she's seeing.
Stephen, I think we'd probably also love to hear from either one of you the status of the various grants that the town's applied for.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet today. The CDBG CV grant, I don't think they've made an announcement. At least they didn't make one as of noon when I communicated with the Acton town manager, who also submitted a grant application. He hasn't heard either. So they promised quick turnaround. That hasn't exactly happened, but I have not seen any confirmations or anything in my inbox yet today. Beth, I don't know if you've got any information on it.
No, Marcia had indicated, oh, there you are. Marcia, why don't you, the last update was we don't have an update, right?
Right, and I just quickly checked, we still have no update from either from Ashland or from MAPC, who submitted the grant on our behalf. Additionally, the Shared Streets grant, which was filed 2 weeks ago, we haven't heard yet. So I was trying to follow up quickly before the meeting, and they did not respond. But we're pursuing another grant that would allow us to purchase outdoor tables and chairs and begin to set up some parking spaces as well as open spaces that are town owned for outdoor dining. So we're working on all of those things. Should I provide an update on the letter I'm working on for the HDC?
Please. Yes.
Regarding,
Yeah.
I did a little research on the temporary signage issue and talked with Ray Matty, our building commissioner, about the signage in Concord Center. And I did some research into the state statute that's established the historic districts. I believe that under their statute, they have the ability to waive some of their requirements for certificates of appropriateness. So I've reached out to Jennifer, to John, Jane, let me see, Kate Carr, to find out what kinds of signage people would want to put up. And I'm putting together a letter for the HDC to consider next Thursday night. I'll be attending their meeting, explaining the rationale for why they might want to consider granting waivers of this requirement for certificates of appropriateness. And if they don't want to waive it entirely, maybe they could have a streamlined process for reviewing them. So I'll be defining the types of signage, and we'll be looking at larger signs, banners, some flags, and anything else that people come up with. I'm trying to promote that recovery of our business areas. I would be requesting this waiver until the end of this year. We'll want to have some caveats in there for if there's snow, that people will remove things that are on the sidewalk so that we can have the plows go through. But that's where the town is on, or where we are on getting a letter together. So I'm hopeful that there is support for that kind of effort. Thank you.
That's terrific. I just want to apologize. I was not taking a phone call. I was taking a phone call from Steve Verrill, who's having a hard time getting in. So I hope he'll be joining us shortly. So anything else, Stephen, that you or Beth want to add? I know that you have been super busy.
Yeah, I don't have an update on utility relief, and I apologize for that. We've been trying to find it's I think I mentioned it's a much bigger question, and we haven't been able to gain any ground on it, so I apologize. But we are it's on the radar. We are pushing it. I don't have it yet.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's a possibility? I mean, can you assign a likelihood to a positive outcome?
Based on what I've heard, I'm not all that optimistic that under the regulatory structures that the utilities operate, that we can create something with outside of a normal rate setting. But we still have some more people we need to ask the question to.
All right, Steve, welcome. You're muted, so we can't hear you yet.
Some of Cato's things I can open, some I can't. I don't know what the deal is.
All right, well, I'm glad we got you here.
Yeah, me
We
too.
just approved the minutes. We just finished the second item on the agenda, which was an update from the town on reopening and the grants program and the process of getting relief from HCC and signage bylaw to give merchants more flexibility with the kind of signage they put out to promote their reopening. Anything else town-wise before we move on to a Conquer Together update?
But just like I said, are we going to talk about the earlier discussion in another part of the agenda, or is now the time to talk about some of the ideas that we are pursuing?
Why don't we do it now? I think it's a great time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll let Beth run with this, but one of the big things we talked about outdoor community events, had a kind of a task force level discussion this morning that I agree with you I thought was productive. One of the ideas that Beth and I are working together on and hope to get a couple of volunteers, a couple of people who have emerged as interested in, volunteering to help bring something together is an outdoor movie, maybe like a drive-in style movie. And so the discussion will be to advance that discussion. I think we have to start thinking about how and where we have identified a vendor. So now we're going to line up some dates and then figure out ways where local retailers, restaurants, shops can find a way to capitalize on promoting, a ticket to the show with some kind of service, product, meal, or something that they offer. This is I think the second day we've been discussing it, or third day maybe. So it's coming. It's starting to gel quickly, at least in my head. But I do think it's pretty doable. The other issue is maybe having kind of street fairs or street festivals, and the street closure part is by far the easiest part. The harder part is what within the limitations on gathering sizes can we do to create a sense of vibrancy, a sense of place, and that, like I said, that fair-like atmosphere that gets people wanting to come back. Because I think, as John articulated this morning, we're not looking for a one-off silver bullet. I mean, I think we need to do it because one big day of revenue is better than none. But we want to create, conditions that will cause people to form a habit of shopping locally. And so those are the kind of two things that are on the front burner for our efforts towards trying to generate activity for businesses.
I feel like I should say something only because there's no way any of you would have known this, and now I wonder if I should change some of this. But anyway, I had been in conversation with Elizabeth from Trails End and one of the board members at Orchard House. They all had this great thought to do an outdoor movie night at Trails End as a sort of a fundraiser for Orchard House. And also, of course, they would serve food from Trails End and people would be in their cars because it would be a drive-in. So now hearing that this has also come up, I don't want to somehow, well, I mean, maybe there's room for 2 drive-in nights or something, I don't know, but I just feel like I should at least mention that this has been in conversation a little bit. So just, you can advise me if you think, oh, you should step back on that because for the greater good of the town, or maybe there's room for two of those nights. I don't know. But anyway, just thought I should mention it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's efforts.
Whoops, I think 2 people spoke at once.
It's a great idea, Jan. I think there's room for
More
as
than
much
one.
as, there's more room for more.
Room for
Great idea. Great idea.
Jennifer, you had a comment?
Sorry.
I was just going to say, if we're able to carve something out with the town for more people to attend, say at the high school, maybe we can have Trails End be one of the providers of the box dinners, and maybe we could have it be combined with some sort of a fundraiser for Orchard House. I mean, especially if, say, we show Little Women, something like that. I mean,
that was the movie we were looking at.
yeah. So there's plenty of room at the table.
Are people?
Yeah,
Let's do Stephen's been waiting to speak. Stephen and then Marcia.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that it's the setup to do this has a fixed cost, whether you have 4 cars or 400 cars.
That's true.
And so I had talked to Manny at Trails End, or actually Concord Market / Trails End, and he said he was interested in trying to put them together. And I told him to hold that thought because we had another person who had reached out with a willingness to be a part of it, and we haven't connected those 2 people yet. I think I'll speak for myself. I wanted to get the feedback both from the committee this morning and the group and the Economic Vitality Committee about, if people feel like if there's consensus that this is a great idea, we can start rolling it. I mean, I think, is there room for 2 events? Yes. I visualize the parking lot at Trails End versus the parking lot at CCHS, and I'm not opposed to anybody trying different things and doing it. I was just thinking about where's the greatest bang for our buck in setting this thing up. And I have talked to Dr. Hunter about potentially using CCHS, and she obviously needs more details, but thought it was a good idea. So that is a possible opportunity. But that's not to foreclose the option for somebody else. I just think, if we were going to do this as a town-wide event, but a large scale event where multiple businesses could get some kind of benefit of it, it would make more sense to do it at the high school. But if there's a sort of a niche event that Trails End wants to do, I think there's room for that as well.
And I want to add that the Concord Center Cultural District has been talking about doing a film festival, and so that they've sort of stepped back, but they are ready, willing, and able to participate in any kind of discussion where we might do that, and as an outdoor festival. So Jerry Wedge, I can't remember the other members' names, but Jerry has been part of that group that's talking about doing it. So there is another group that is willing to support and to provide some additional films.
Yeah, Jerry came this morning, so, and I confirmed with Stuart, they actually already have the DVD because we had thought we were going to run it at the Umbrella all those days. So they already have the connection with Paramount and the DVD. So should we watch Little Women, the Umbrella is going to support it. And it was actually the connection from Jerry at the Umbrella to a local resident that was interested in taking over the project. Since the cultural district didn't want to run with it, Jerry had given me this other name, and he'd come to me and said, I'll run it. So I said, great, somebody else can run it, and I'll support it. So where we are is, as Stephen said, we have a vendor. He's talked to Dr. Hunter once, and we really wanted to know from this group and from the Concord Together group if there was desire, if they thought this was something everybody wanted to do. I've already heard really positive feedback from everybody on the call this morning. So I think it's a great idea, and we could do it. The vendor has dates for July and August. We could conceivably do 2 or 3 movies. And my rough, I went through the site today. I had GIS do a map for me to get an idea of space that we can send to the vendor about setting up screens. So if everybody thinks it's a great idea, then Stephen and Marcia and I can probably, roll the ball going.
I think if we take a look at our mandate, which also does include tourist attractions and in the town, this could actually be a beautiful test case of this organization's ability to bring this together. And Orchard House has had no source of revenue this entire time. So I think it would be a really wonderful thing if we were showing Little Women, if part of the ticket proceeds were to go to the Orchard House.
Absolutely.
And support them.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make one tiny correction for the minutes because it's not Paramount, it's Sony.
Oh, sorry.
They will really care.
They will, yeah. So, and Stuart has the physical DVD in his hands, so that helps. We just have to negotiate the price based on how much we charge and how many cars and all of that. So, but
that's great.
He already has that.
Steve, your hand was up.
Yeah, we have a parking field we usually use for events that will hold several hundred cars if that is of interest for any of the functions. I don't know how big the screen is or how close the cars have to be.
Beth, how big is the screen?
It's huge. This is what the company does. They rent these massive screens out, and they actually, the package comes with the screen, the projector, the staff to run it, the transmitter for cars. So if people want to they have the ability for people to sit in cars and watch it with the FM transmitter, or a lot of places are setting up a car spot and an empty spot and a car spot and an empty spot. So in the empty spot, you can sit, with your family group and your lawn chairs.
That's cool.
So it's big and professional quality. So
There was a ton of energy for this idea this morning in the call. There's going to be another call of the same group next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, I believe.
I think so.
And I mean, it sounds to me like there's good support for the idea. Jennifer, I like the idea of wrapping Alcott House into it. Jan, that would be great. But hopefully we find we get a good response to this, because this could become it's a great way for people to gather and watch movies, which are kind of hard to do right now. So I think it's good. I'm glad to hear there's support. And I'd encourage anybody who would like to join the call next Wednesday morning, because the more hands involved, the lighter the lifting. And I'm really glad.
What time is that call?
It's 10 o'clock.
And do you send out a Zoom invitation? I mean, in order to link into it?
Jeremy did. So Jeremy, if you're here, can you send that around to this group as well?
I didn't get that. So, yeah.
So the only thing I'll say is, under the open meeting law, it's not a posted meeting of the EVC, so we really shouldn't have a quorum
right
on that call. It's just not to be that guy, but I just want to make sure that we're mindful of that.
You kind of are that guy, but okay. No, it's a fair point. I think I think Jan should certainly be there. We barely made a quorum today for our own meeting, so I doubt we'll have a problem with a quorum next week.
If you show up to that meeting at 10 next week, you're expected to actually do something to make it happen.
That's right.
Then nobody will come.
Right.
Okay. So let's move on to the Concord Together update. And since I'm chairing this meeting, Jennifer, do you want to provide the Concord Together update?
Sure, I'll do the summer solstice part, and I'll leave the grant updates to Jen, the other Jen. I know this is like the Gens of the world unite call here. Okay, so the summer solstice event is finally up and running. I think we're getting some good feedback. Stephen, I'm sorry you got a little pushback on the call. I can understand why people might see it as telemarketing. Not everyone really understands how important it is to be supporting the businesses through this pandemic, but it's all good. A lot of the shops are now actually displaying the little passport cards in their windows. Some are being really creative. Marie at Revolutionary Concord has been a real leader in this. She created a mini passport, 6 to a page, and she prints them out and cuts them up, and she goes ahead and signs the first square. So as customers are checking out, she's handing them the passport with the first thing signed in it. And she's saying, keep shopping. And she's really been a great spokesperson. The town really came out for us last week. I think, remember after our call last time, I'm sorry, I think it was the Concord Together call. We put out the call for volunteers. We had 12 people show up at the visitor center the next morning at 9 a.m. to walk all around. We split them up into block captains between Concord Center. We split them up on the different streets, Thoreau Street, and then West Concord. And we had people go up and down the street and actually walk into the stores, give them a sample passport, explain the rules, make sure they knew what was going on. Of course, we're still getting people that are just hearing about it. That's the nature of an all volunteer effort. The response has been great. We've been promoting it on social media. And today we did our very first drawing of our first week's prizes. So 4 lucky winners got gift cards for shops in West Concord and Concord Center. That's going to continue every week. We do it as a Facebook Live. It's drawn at the visitor center by one of the volunteers there. So there's no funny business about who wins. We give a nice shout out to the shops and restaurants who gave the prize that's being drawn that week. So if you're curious to see what that looks like, you can go to the Concord Together Facebook page and look at the Facebook live stream. I have to thank Jan, because Jan actually inspired us to try that out. She's been doing these great Facebook live streams from Orchard House. So it went pretty well. When we called the people to let them know they won, they were quite thrilled. So Beth, I think you'll have some people at your door promptly at 10 a.m. to pick up their prizes.
Be ready.
You know, the article in the paper, I think it was great. Rob actually gave us front page above the fold, which was wonderful. So it's a nice promotion, and we'll be supplementing that with just constant thank yous to the shops and the restaurants that are giving. If you're talking to some of your fellow merchants, it's not too late to give a donated gift card if you'd like to. Everyone who gives will be recognized through the effort, and hopefully it's giving a little infusion of help. Beth mentioned on a call this morning that at least Concord Center has been very busy this week with foot traffic. So Jen from Joy Street, I don't know, are you seeing any uptick in West Concord?
Hi there. So when I'm open, it's been awesome, like just awesome. But I have one staff member who's leaving for college in 4 weeks. So I can only be open 3 days with 2 kids at home. So that is awful. But yeah, when I'm open, it has been terrific.
Good to hear.
Can you quantify terrific? Does that mean like business at traditional levels, or?
Double what I had done on the same day the year before.
Oh.
So what I don't know is it because people are coming in, they know I'm only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the moment. They're coming in. And yeah, no, like great. So, and we can only have 7 people in. And for the most part, that's been great. We did have just one crazy person who was trying to, I don't know, she was just adamant about coming in with a 1-ply brown napkin as her mask and touching everything. And when we just were like, we're not comfortable, it was ugly, but everybody else has been amazing. And I don't know if it seems busier in West Concord or not. It's like waves, but we've been busy. I mean, I would say since we closed, our average sale has been double what it was beforehand. I think people are coming in and doing a lot at once. Maybe they're like, either because we're not open, let's get stuff so I don't miss it, or I don't want to be out a lot. So if I'm going out and I'm going in a shop, I'm going to get gifts for all this stuff. So
we printed them out with our logo in the top corner also, and giving them out at the registers. And between today and tomorrow, we'll be giving out nearly 500 at the CSAs.
Wow.
So we probably got over 1,000 in circulation.
Wonderful.
that's great.
I think that the long-term solution, the long-term kind of support that businesses need is for people to shop local more loyally and more regularly, and to spend more locally, right? And if we can really succeed in driving that message, through everything we do, I love that, Jen, hearing that your sales are actually up.
Yeah.
Steve, putting 1,000 of those little things into circulation is huge. So maybe we really are starting to move the needle a little bit. That'd be terrific.
Like
I've
I
taken
said,
the liberty.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, they're up double on the days I'm open, but I used to be open 7 days and I'm now open 3.
Right.
But it could be worse. And actually, I would also add that almost everybody that's coming in is saying how they really are focusing on shopping local. They want to do everything they can to buy local and not online and stuff like that. So that's great.
So Jennifer Sheneman, that is actually an idea we could talk to the Journal about for a future story, would be sharing some of these success stories, some positive feedback for people to understand that what they're doing actually really is making a difference.
We've taken the liberty of printing out the little promotional poster and taken the liberty of saying the grand prize will be hundreds of dollars of gift certificates. I hope that isn't an exaggeration. I expect it wouldn't be.
there's also an iPad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is worth hundreds of dollars. So yeah.
But it's an iPad plus a minimum of $500 in gift cards.
Yeah,
So yeah.
okay.
I have a question for Jen.
Hmm.
Were your customers from Concord or from the greater area? Do you know?
I would say they're mostly Concord and maybe like Maynard, Acton, like that is on my side. I do not have and never have had a lot of tourists. So in one way, that's good because it doesn't hurt. Not having the tourists doesn't really impact me that much.
I didn't, yeah, tourists don't go over to West Concord very often.
I know it's fortunate. They should come over, but we'll work on that at another time.
Yeah, I'm just curious about, was it the greater kind of West Concord and West Indian?
I mean, I would say most of the people coming in are my regulars. And I mean, so they are Concord, Maynard, Acton, Littleton, primarily. Am I forgetting? Sudbury on the Concord side of Sudbury.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Jen, do you want to give us an update on how the grants program is going?
Sure, happy to. So we officially launched the grant application for businesses about 10 days ago now, and within a very short period of time, we received about 25 grant applications from our local business community. People that are, as you know, desperately looking for some help with many different things to keep running business, whether it's, marketing, signage, back costs, things like that. So there's a lot of certainly desperation and need there that we've seen in reading these applications. We have a committee together that is reviewing these applications actually this week. And so we're going to go through the first lot of them and make decisions on how we can sort of do the best with the funds that we have. I will say that we are, as of about a day ago, we're just at just over $50,000 in the grant funds. So that's a great plus. We're excited to be able to have that amount now. And there's still, obviously, as it's been put out publicly, we still have some matching grant funds available, which we're working on reaching. I know there's a lot of different efforts out there to try and get more funds available, but we felt it was important to not wait to get funds out there. We know that they're still waiting on some of the more public grant funds and that our community needs it now. So let's try to at least infuse some little bit of money while we can. And then it's a rolling application process. So if there are folks that don't know about it, please share it. It is on the Trust's website. And that, we'll accept them and review them as they come in. The first batch we're doing soon so that we can try to really help people now. Yeah, that's where we are. And we hope to get the funds out in the next week or so, if possible.
Yeah, we do have a couple of fairly big matching grant offers that are kind of in the works, and we're actually considering going to those folks and essentially saying, well, we know that you've offered these as matches, meaning we've got to raise an equal amount of money before you fund them, but it does feel like the need is now. And so I'm working with one of the donors, Jennifer Shinneman's working with the other, and we're considering going to them together and basically saying, would you consider just pulling the trigger on your full donation now so that we can accelerate the grants process, maybe even increase the size of the initial grants beyond what people have applied for? Because there was a cap of $2,500 put on the grants, and for good reason, because we didn't know how quickly we might succeed in raising how much money. But if we could really increase that 50 to 250 or 300 quite quickly, then there would be reason to increase that minimum, and then also be able to accelerate the grants, not only to the initial 25 or 27 that have applied, but hopefully get the word out and have others applying as well. So I think that we'll probably know in the next, before this committee meets again, whether we've been able to pull that off. But that's exciting, and the community chest is just the perfect one to administer this process, and we're very grateful. Thanks, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be part of this.
Were there any questions on the grants program? in particular, I guess I'd ask the retailers, do you think that people are aware of the program, and are people leaping to apply? What's your sense? Dawn, have you heard anything about it?
Well, I've seen whoever's doing your social media is doing a great job. I've seen a lot on there. In fact, I saw the town, it wasn't about the grants, but I was pleased to see the town did have a shop local yesterday. That's probably when I saw it.
Yeah.
So I do think people know about it, and Jane has been promoting it in her notes from the chamber.
Good. Okay. I guess before we move on from the Conquer Together update, let me raise an idea. We did our last survey a couple of weeks ago. I'm wondering whether there's any specific data that would be helpful, for example, upcoming grant applications that the town may have heard about. Marcia, Beth, Stephen, I don't know if you guys know of anything that could be in the works, but we can always launch another survey if that would be useful. And a couple of things that occur to me that would be interesting to know more about is I would be curious to know what kind of trends retailers are seeing in their sales. Are things, is Jen's experience unique, or are things really kind of, are things beginning to turn a little bit? That would be nice. I mean, as the reopening occurs, obviously, if you were closed before, sales are going to go up, but it would be interesting to know how people are doing relative to, the same weeks last year. Also, I think it'd be interesting to know, how many, days or hours stores are open a week, because I think those are, for many businesses, it is down from what they've been traditionally, but I think it'd be interesting to understand that. And then the question about, who is actually shopping in Concord? Are we seeing, is it primarily local shoppers? Is it the usual suspects, or are we seeing, other people being drawn in? But those are just a few ideas, but if there's data that we think would be useful for anything, for any reason at all, we can incorporate that into a survey, and it doesn't take a long time to get one of those surveys mounted. So I just wanted to, I guess, throw that out there as a topic. Do people think that we should be thinking about a survey next week?
Can I make a suggestion on that?
Sure.
It's Steven. Because as I was listening to Jen talk, there are studies out there that say $1 spent locally gets circulated in the community 6 times or something like that. And I'm always like, well, how do they really know that? But if anecdotally anyway, local businesses see, like you said, success stories, the question would then be, has that enabled you to increase your spending on whatever locally? And if it hasn't, it hasn't. I mean, there's a lot of, I understand that people probably have a lot of ground to recover.
Yeah.
But an option of, if money spent locally gets, I was at, just like an anecdote, like my sales were better, so I was able to hire more employees who are local, or I was able to, go out, enjoy a dinner out locally because I had a good week at the store. I mean, stuff like that. I don't know if we're there yet, but to me, that information is compelling because to me, I find it inspiring. So, if you just shop locally a little bit, it has an algorithmic progression on the local economy or impact.
When we were putting our article together in Discover Concord magazine, which goes live tomorrow, by the way, there's an article on what the restaurants are doing to reopen. And Kristen Canty of Woods Hill actually made a point directly to what you're saying, Stephen. She said that, because people were so good about like buying gift cards or getting takeout or things like that, that they were able to survive the worst of the pandemic. They in turn, now that they're opening, are able to keep going with their local fishmongers, their local farmers, cheesemakers, etc. And it definitely allowed them to help those businesses survive too.
Good point. Jan, you had a point?
Yeah, so I guess 2 things come to mind. I think a survey would be interesting. I'd love a survey to find out what people are going to do and retailers doing in the fall and as the holiday season comes around, with the aspect of schools going back or not going back. Because I can tell you, for me, I have 2 school-age children, and that is why I'm not, well, that and virtually none of my staff came back, in part because they have school-age children and they're afraid. So even though I've just been open 3 weeks now, I think we could have been open 4 or 5, I don't know. But I can tell you that it is very wonderful that my sales were double on those 3 days. But not only did I lose, you know, as we all did, from March till I opened, I have tens of thousands of dollars of inventory that had come in right before we shut down that were for all of the holidays that I still have in my basement. And so I'm probably going to have a sale soon, like a significant sale, because I just have to move it out of there. And then the other thing is, as in many retailers, November and December that is where I do half of my business for the year. And we would typically, fortunately, have 7 to 8 people lined up trying to check out like all day long. That is not going to happen in this world. I can't imagine. Well, I can only have 7 people in my store at a time anyway right now, which feels safe. So I would love to know, what are people doing if you have kids at home and school and trying to run a business? Because I have to remember, like, it's so nice to hear you guys saying that's great with the double. I have to remember that, because I am just sitting here like, how do I run a business if you're not supposed to have somebody in for doing childcare, and we're supposed to be doing teaching and trying to run a business, and can't have enough people in the store, or maybe even wanting to store. I did sign a contract. Someone's building a website for me. I'm going to be putting almost everything online with the thought that there's going to be a shutdown again, and that we can do much better curbside pickup. And I'm going to start putting on actually holiday items, hopefully by September, for order now for delivery by, as a way to see what demand is, and hopefully, and not, you know, I'm just trying all these things, but I'm worried. So, and not because the town isn't supportive in the brand has been, everybody's been really supportive, but I would love to know what people are thinking for the fall.
That to me seems like something we should try to get ahead of now. It's a really good point. I mean, so many retailers are so dependent on that holiday, 8 weeks or whatever, right? Almost kind of gearing up for that opportunity now, making sure that everyone has what they need to be successful then, would be a worthwhile endeavor. Something to think about for sure.
Well, we have a similar situation because the business has been pretty smooth up until now, but when we get into corn and tomatoes, it increases traffic, and we're limited to the number of people in the store, and we don't think we can move enough people through to buy what we should be selling then.
Yeah.
And of course, Thanksgiving is our peak, busiest time, and there's no way we could pull that off with the limitation of the number of customers in the building.
Could you set up like 2 checkout areas, like even one outside of where you are, since you have so much space?
Well, I'm in the process of building a second location in the greenhouse to run a couple registers, but you're still limited to the number of people passing through.
Right.
We might put up a tent like we did during a renovation several years ago outside for some of the produce, but there's a limited amount of that you can sustain in weather like this outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few months ago, we toyed around with what seemed like a monumental task and maybe a crazy idea. But Jen, I hope we're all wrong, but I don't see how we can avoid some sort of at least slowdown in the fall when all the kids come back to go to university from all over the country and everything. So I think it's wise to at least scenario plan. And John, you remember we were talking about the idea of creating almost a virtual shopping mall for Concord stores. Now it's a huge initiative. You'd have to get all the inventory from all the shops in Concord into some sort of shopping interface. You'd have to support that with some sort of townwide delivery service and or pickup for mailing or something. It's huge, but maybe we should at least put that on the whiteboard as one of the scenario planning options.
That's a neat idea. I know it is massive, but that's interesting.
Even some kind of centralized delivery service would be phenomenal.
Right.
No,
that's the kind of thing that has the potential to really become a sustainable opportunity for businesses, because even once we get past COVID, there's still Amazon, right? And the question of how you survive in the face of increased digitization from on the competitive front, it's hard. Maybe something to do here is to form a committee to begin to think about what would be required and begin to scope out a technology project. Because as you say, Jennifer, part of it's technology, a lot of it's process. And in e-commerce from a logistical standpoint, it's the logistics that are so tricky. But I think it certainly is worth thinking about how that might work. And from a funding standpoint, that's the kind of project that is so well defined that I think that from a fundraising standpoint, that we could get private people to donate to it. We might also be able to tap into some grant programs, but it would be a really amazing thing if we could pull it off.
I just wanted to mention too that if various sites are doing what Jennifer was just talking about, you said you've hired somebody to do a website, and if whatever sites have anything already on a web address, online, it seems like that would be a relatively easier way to at least start there. You could hook those in and then they can be added to, and the stores that don't have anything can come on board as well. But I think if you have people with that ability already, like what you're going to do, Jen, and what we have at the Orchard House, you could just link in to that store and they can buy right from that store through your mall.
I wonder if you could do something too, we could shop through, concordmass.gov, let's just say that's what it was, where there were links to shop. If you start there and have a page that has the bookstore and us and Veril and all this, and some sort of an incentive to go to that page, and where you would see other retailers. I don't know what it would be like. You could agree to 5% discount or some discount or free shipping or free delivery.
Well, even what you're doing now with Concord Together, that could just be extended. You can put it online and have your little card and and have the drawing. I think that's a really great idea. That's, I think, in some ways more powerful than the free shipping and the discount. Everybody does that, but this is different, and I think you could do that online.
That's interesting.
And there are different levels of integration too. The way that a lot of e-commerce has evolved, it started out with individual companies just marketing their stuff online, right? But the inventory wasn't necessarily tied into the platform,
right?
And people were accustomed to going around to different sites to buy different things. Now you go to Amazon and you can buy anything, and it all comes in one package, or it all comes in a few packages, but it still is one transaction. We don't have to jump to the end game on day one, right? I think to your point, Jan, even having a marketing site where you have the ability to come and see all the Concord stores and link to their websites individually, that's kind of step one. The holy grail would be, well, everyone's inventory is all tied into the system, and there's a warehouse someplace that gets the order and it all gets packaged and shipped out. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But I don't think you don't need to be there right away.
I think consumers are getting ready for that now, because we did all of our pick your own strawberry by appointment online, and people had to sign up and pay $7 for the first quart and pick out a half-hour period that they were going to come. And it went flawlessly. We had hardly any walk-ins that hadn't signed up. And I was pleasantly amazed.
That's amazing. So maybe we need to think about kind of the e-commerce subcommittee, or putting something together. So let's let's note that as something that we'll pursue. Okay, moving on, updates from committee members. We just had a nice discussion, different things. Is there anything we haven't covered that anyone would like to raise or discuss? Are there ideas or whatever? Dawn?
Well, this is just coming up because of the conversation between Jen and Steve where, Jen offered, well, could you do this? Could you set up another checkout spot? So maybe the retailers, I don't know how much it would affect you, Jan, but maybe retailers, we might consider doing an offshoot kind of a roundtable, I don't know, not venting, but I've got this problem or this challenge and put the minds together. It's not an EVC thing, but I can see that we can help each other brainstorm from our different sections of the town and an idea, think outside the box. So I don't know that has a space officially on the committee, but there's power in the masses of brains coming together.
Well, and I'm sorry. Should I?
Go ahead, Jen.
Just to Dawn, I thought that was really great that you said, I don't know how it would affect, a place like Orchard House, but I'll tell you, I think it is an interesting idea that any of the museums in town or the nonprofits in town, if they have merchandise, they could participate. I've been thinking about that we really should do more, because right now, at this moment in time, with the stricture of 8 people per 1,000 feet and how much it costs us to have guides, with the increased amount that we pay the guides, and it's hard for them to talk through the masks, and you don't want that exposure, that extra exposure, and so few people. We've determined that right now, to have the museum open, we would lose money on a daily basis to open. But with merchandise, that we're keeping our online business going. And so I'm thinking, it is a way of helping to keep nonprofits alive too. And I feel like more and more an alliance between the retailers and the museums or nonprofits or whatever you want to call them is smart, because it gives you more variety and it helps keep the town's identity in front of everyone at all times. It's not just, there's the retail, there's the museum. We're in town, and I think it helps that's a good image for the town.
Right. Well, that's actually the mandate, right? Is to tie all those sectors together.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was great that you brought that up, Dawn.
I love it. I think it would be wonderful. Beth?
John, there is one thing I've sort of been quietly working on. There's the Enterprise Center at Salem State runs a series of business workshops. So I've talked to Joe Weintraub at the Concord Carlisle Continuing Ed, as well as a professional consultant, to see if they would be interested in launching a small series of business workshops. I gave them some topics that I thought would be valuable, and starting an e-commerce site, working during a crisis communications, marketing, things like that. So they're really interested to do that. And they're working on it now. I gave them a couple of things to think about, but I met with this consultant and Jill Weintraub last week. So I think that might be helpful to all of you and a lot of others too, that we may be able to have these workshop series. The Enterprise Center, some of them are free, some of them are like $25. They're really low cost. They bring in a speaker, in this day it can be over Zoom, and sort of just help everybody work together and find what those collaborations are, whether it's one e-commerce site that makes a shopping mall, or whether it's just, here's how to start an e-commerce site, here's how to get your merchandise out, here's best ways to partner with another business. Here's an example of a retail and a restaurant, or retail and an orchard house working together. So I'm hoping that something's going to come of that in the next few weeks that I'll be able to share, or invite Jill to talk about it to this group. But it was just sort of an interesting conversation to have, to see if there are resources out there bigger than all of us that maybe can talk and give some pointers and some suggestions and run some webinars with some real knowledge.
Right. That's excellent. That's excellent.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
So, John,
go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, John. So when I heard that the kind of the brief interaction about I've got this problem, it's not quite venting, but it's more, I've got these issues that I'm contending with, and I just really need to know somebody else understands them, and maybe somebody's got some solutions. And I thought, geez, that's not really, it's not really made for a survey, but a forum, even like an online forum, that could be started up relatively easily for local folks to go on and kind of start those threads, and then see what shared solutions are. I mean, the one thing the kind of light bulb went off in my head when I heard Steve talking about, he's got the produce, he's got the demand, he just can't have enough, customers in his place at one time to move it. And I thought, well, if that's like a space and and number issue. And so, are there other spaces that could be available? And it may be the logistics of it wouldn't work, but just as a global thought, like if there are spaces that aren't being used, you could conceivably increase your number of customers, just not at your location, I guess is the way I would say that. And so it's these types of idea sharing things that, B2B can be, really powerful, and can happen kind of on their own organically. So, I think that like some kind of forum like that may be helpful.
I think we're seeing a lot of nodding heads on this idea of getting a group together.
Yeah, actually, Stephen, I like your thought on an online forum like the old, electronic bulletin boards, because then it's not a set meeting time where, we're conflicting with other obligations that are going on. That kind of a closed group online discussion that can be added to, frankly, like a Facebook page, right? Like a closed Facebook page.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to suggest that sometimes people aren't their best selves when they comment on things online, but it should be a closed group to be productive. It needs to be all of you talking to each other to try and find solutions. Not here's where anybody who had a bad experience shopping in Concord can come complain about it.
There are no such people, Stephen, and I'm astonished you even imply there might be. Good. So I think we can kind of take this idea offline and see how to move forward with it. But really good discussion on this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. By the way, John, I appreciate the fact you mentioned that there were nodding heads, because I'm using my phone because I don't have internet access at the house right now, and all I heard was dead silence, and I'm like, uh-oh.
These telephones actually have video on them, believe it or not.
Yeah, I'm rocking my iPhone 7, and the battery lasts about 10 minutes when I'm on Zoom by video.
All right. Is there any other business that we want to cover? We're approaching the end of our time. Susan Bates.
I just wanted to bring up something that I had mentioned to Jen and John earlier. The Agriculture Committee has sponsored an Ag Day in Concord every September for the last several years, and they're hoping to do that again. They spoke to us at the Select Board this week, and they were looking at September 12th with about 9 farms in the Garden Club, and I'm not sure. This is evolving because they have to, go through the logistics of spacing people out and so forth, other the COVID restrictions. But I think it's a nice test for what could follow when whatever normal becomes a larger townwide event. I mean, it would give us a sense of how it draws people, how you handle when you get X number of people. And I just wanted the committee to be aware of it and to comment if you care to. The other thing I could say is at the next meeting, I'd suggested this, the chair of the Ag Committee would be willing to come and talk to you about it and tell you what her thoughts are, if that would be of interest. Or I can just liaise between the two, between you and Ag.
Well,
Susan?
go ahead, sorry.
Susan, there is some interest among some of the retailers to try to tap into that. At least there had been before COVID-19 occurred, to try to overlap with that for a marketing event. So not everybody is wild about that event, but there are some that like the spillover effect, and so it would be interesting.
I noticed that the last
it draws people into Concord, and there is a spillover to the retail and the food sector as well.
At the last ag fair, there was a little tiny bit of that going on. I noticed the little shop that's up there near Nesting, the new one, the craft shop. I can't remember the name of it, but it's right near Nesting, up above.
It was Crafted Studios, but they're out of business now.
So they were doing that. They had a table set up, and they had crafts, and I thought that was a nice touch too, because anything that adds interest and diversifies, not everybody wants to buy this, but then they get attracted to that. And then all of a sudden, maybe those carrots do look awfully good or something,
I think that as we plan the agenda for our next meeting, Susan, it may be interesting actually, because to me, we're in a different time. It used to be that, you could be a little choosy about which kind of, traffic was being drawn into Concord Center. Nowadays, I think all traffic is welcome, and it's a great opportunity for the businesses to market themselves in new and different ways. So I'm sure that there's a tie-in here, and that would be good. We should certainly, take advantage of that.
Okay, so I'll ask her to come to attend the meeting.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Who is it, by the way?
It's Happy Gothert. She's on the ad committee. I don't know her, but I was emailing with her about possibility of coming to one of the meetings if she was willing.
Anybody named Happy is welcome in this.
That's right. Yes.
I'm a member of the Ag Committee also, but we haven't had any meetings since this whole business began. Usually we meet monthly, but there's been a lapse there. But we, as you said, we have conducted the event for a number of years now in town. Most people would like to do it again if it's feasible and possible.
Yeah, this one, the Ag Day may be a way of looking at the broader idea that, John, you mentioned earlier in the meeting about increasing foot traffic to Concord overall. And granted, it's Concord Center, but the events, there's been a lot of efforts over the years to try to link events to the retail market and the restaurants, and probably an area to explore where maybe tweaking that to make it a little bit better for everybody would be a way to help promote increased foot traffic throughout Concord. It is something that could be built, and that could be a trial test, as you said, Susan, and maybe there's another event after that that can kind of link that with an event to increasing foot traffic for retailers and restaurants. Yeah. Marcia has tried that for a long time, so she probably has a lot of ideas as well.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, we are approaching the end of our allotted time. Are there any other, I don't believe we have any kind of additional citizens who haven't spoken up yet, but this would be the opportunity, if you're here and we can't see you, to do so. All right. In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Okay, do we need to do this again by roll call? I think we do per our tradition. So Jennifer Sheneman?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
John? Aye. So I guess we'll see everybody at the same time in 2 weeks.
Thank you, John. Great meeting.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
2 weeks. Okay, take care.
Bye.